There is a sacred invitation whispered into the silence of every morning. Live today not as a routine, not as a rehearsal, but as if it were your last. Not from fear, but from reverence. Not from panic, but from presence. For when you remember that nothing is promised, not even the breath you are taking now, everything becomes sacred. Every glance, every step, every ordinary act, drenched suddenly in meaning, becomes a prayer to the eternal. What if today was not just another day, but the final brushstroke on the masterpiece of your life? Would you rush through it in worry? Would you carry grudges into its fragile hours? Or would you finally see the miracle in your own hands, in the eyes of those you love, in the soft hush of your own heartbeat? To live as if this were your last day is not to dwell in morbidity. It is to awaken. It is to peel away the illusion of tomorrow and let the present moment shine so brightly that it blinds every lie you've ever believed about what matters. The Tao Te Ching reminds us that life is a series of natural and spontaneous changes. Do not resist them. That resistance is where suffering lives. But presence, that is where God breathes. You are not here forever. This body will fade. These roles you play will dissolve. The house you built, the titles you gathered, the opinions you feared, none of them will follow you beyond the veil. But your love will. Your awareness will. Your choices made in truth, your compassion given freely, your courage to forgive, these are eternal. These are what carry you home. When you live each day as if it were your last, you don't postpone your joy. You don't wait to say, I love you or I forgive you. You don't let pride write the ending to a story still aching for peace. You understand that no moment is too small for significance, and no soul is unworthy of your kindness, including your own. Imagine walking through this day with the awareness that every encounter is holy, that every person you pass is a fellow traveler on the same brief journey through form. How gently you would walk, how carefully you would speak, how quickly you would release the need to be right in favor of being real. Because when the ego dissolves in the presence of impermanence, only love remains. And yet, how quickly we forget. We get lost in the illusions of time as if tomorrow is guaranteed. We speak harshly, assuming there will be time to apologize. We stay in jobs that suffocate us, relationships that numb us, patterns that diminish us all because we think we have more time. But time, beloved, is not a promise. It is a gift, a miracle. A single breath is a universe, and one day you will take your last. Will you have lived fully by then? Will you have said what your soul came here to say? Will you have danced your dance, sung your song, wept your tears, and poured your essence into the world without restraint? To live this way consciously, presently, passionately is not to deny the future, but to surrender the illusion that it is where your life begins. Your life is not out there. It is not waiting in some imagined someday. It is here. Now, in this inhale, in this exhale, in this tender, fleeting, holy instant, you must not wait to live. The soul cannot thrive on delays. There is no spiritual awakening that begins tomorrow. There is only this moment and your willingness to be completely alive within it. This day is a cathedral, not built of stone, but of seconds. Not lit by stained glass, but by awareness. Enter it barefoot. Enter it reverently. Let your thoughts be prayers. Let your actions be offerings. Let your silence be filled not with absence, but with presence. And let love be the altar upon which you lay your worries down. Living each day as if it were your last is not a practice in despair. It is the highest form of gratitude. It is the soul's way of saying, thank you for this chance. Thank you for this breath. Thank you for the simple, sacred fact that I exist. And from this reverence comes transformation. When you begin to see the day not as a burden, but as a canvas painted by divine hands, something inside you softens. You stop chasing meaning and start becoming it. You begin to realize that the greatest prayer is not spoken aloud, but lived in the way you pour yourself into every sacred now. A smile given freely, a moment of stillness shared, a truth told without needing reward. This is where the divine reveals itself not in thunder or spectacle, but in your smallest acts done with great love. We have been taught to measure our lives by milestones, by trophies, by achievements carved into stone. But the soul is not interested in what you've gathered. It wants to know what you've given, not what you've built, but what you've become in the process of living. It asked, did you love fearlessly? Did you forgive fully? Did you notice the stars, the laughter, the quiet sobs in the night? Or did you rush past the miracles, trying to control a future that was never yours to command? There is a peculiar wisdom in remembering death not as a shadow to be feared, but as a mirror held up to life. It does not ask you to mourn, but to wake up. It does not steal your days, it returns them to you. Clearer, brighter, weightless. It says, if not now, when? And you realize the someday you've been waiting for is not coming, because it's already here. To live as if this were your last day is not to be reckless. It is to become exquisitely aware. Aware that every word you speak plants a seed, that every thought you dwell on shapes your being, that every time you choose compassion over judgment, silence over noise, truth over pretense, you are chiseling your soul into its truest form. You no longer need to strive to be remembered. You need only to be fully present. The world forgets names, statues crumble, but presence leaves an imprint on eternity. A moment of pure love given in silence echoes far longer than a lifetime of applause. And so walk gently through this day, not timidly but reverently, as one who knows they are walking through the sacred. Notice the way the sunlight rests on the leaves, as if even the trees are being kissed by the infinite. Listen to the wind not just as sound but as message. Feel your own breath and marvel at the miracle that it is happening at all. You were not placed here to survive this day. You were placed here to sanctify it, to meet it as a lover meets a long-lost companion with awe, with tears, with full-hearted devotion. What if you stopped waiting for joy and began living from it? What if you stopped protecting your heart and started offering it as a gift? Not because life is safe, but because your soul was never fragile. It was made to feel, to risk, to open, to dance, even while trembling. The mind may argue, it may insist there are things left undone, goals unmet, stories unfinished, but the heart speaks a simpler truth. You are not here to complete a checklist. You are here to complete the moment, and in doing so, you complete yourself. Everything you run toward will one day dissolve. The only thing that endures is who you become in the running. So run not toward the world's favor, but toward your own truth. Run toward your soul's calling, not its avoidance. And if you must run, run with love trailing behind you like a ribbon of light. Life, when stripped of its distractions, is not a puzzle to be solved, but a song to be sung. Not a test to be passed, but a presence to be lived. And in singing your song with honesty, with depth, with reverence for the brevity of it all, you become the very sound of divinity expressed through flesh. So do not wait. Do not wait for the perfect time to be real. Do not wait for the world to validate what your heart already knows. Do not wait to give, to forgive, to rise, to weep, to speak, to shine, because the soul does not measure life in years, but in the depth of each lived breath. And this breath, this one right now, is holy. There is a tenderness that arrives when you no longer treat time as an enemy, but as an intimate companion. You begin to hold each hour with both hands, not squeezing it for meaning, but caressing it for the miracle that it is. You no longer look past the moment in search of something more, for you have come to see that the moment is the something more, it is the whole, the holy, the hidden gift disguised as ordinary life. When you surrender to the impermanence of all things, a strange peace overtakes you. It is not the peace of knowing how it all ends, but the peace of no longer needing to know. You become like the river, not asking where it will go, but flowing anyway. You trust that each bend is placed by grace, each stone beneath your surface meant to shape your song. You flow not because the path is clear, but because stillness was never your nature. You were born to move with life, not resist it. Gratitude then becomes not a practice, but a posture, a way of standing before the world with arms unclenched, eyes wide, and heart exposed. You begin to thank the silence for its wisdom, the sorrow for its tenderness, the mistakes for their brutal, sacred honesty. Nothing is wasted anymore. Even your most broken moments become teachers dressed in humility. There is no part of you that has been unloved by the universe. Even your regrets have been held. Even your forgetfulness has been embraced by something infinite, waiting with patient arms for your return. This day, this fleeting constellation of minutes, is not asking you to earn your worth. It is asking you to remember it. To walk through the hours, not proving who you are, but allowing who you are to rise unfiltered. And when you touch that depth within you, when you taste the eternal in a single breath, you begin to live from an entirely different place. You become less concerned with how others perceive you and more devoted to how sincerely you meet your own soul. The masks begin to fall, not because you force them, but because they no longer fit. Truth becomes your only skin. What once required effort now flows with ease. You speak, not to impress, but to express what the infinite is whispering through you. You create, not to be seen, but because beauty insists on moving through your hands. You forgive, not to be holy, but because resentment feels foreign in your now softened heart. And in this space, something profound begins to shift. Time no longer feels like a threat, but a river carrying you home. Relationships become mirrors, not battlegrounds. Challenges become invitations, not punishments. Every moment, even the ones that bruise, becomes a part of your return to the real. You begin to notice that the soul doesn't measure success in triumphs, but in presence. That the most important question is no longer, what have I done? But have I shown up with love? And when that becomes your compass, life stops being something to conquer it, becomes something to commune with. You are no longer driven by the noise of the world. You are drawn by the silence within it. That silence has become your sanctuary, your teacher, your oldest truth. In it, you remember who you were before the world told you who to be. And from that remembering, you start to live not as a reaction, but as a revelation. Each breath becomes a soft return. Each step becomes a prayer of gratitude to the earth beneath you. You are not walking towards something. You are walking as something, as peace, as presence, as a fragment of the eternal wearing a human form just long enough to say, I was here and I loved. When you live with the awareness that each breath might be the final word of your earthly story, everything becomes illuminated with unspeakable clarity. You stop arguing over illusions. You stop carrying stories that no longer echo truth. You no longer need to be right. You simply need to be real. And in that realness, you discover a purity that the world could never give and therefore could never take away. There is something quietly heroic about those who have touched the impermanence of all things and yet still choose to open their hearts. It takes no strength to build walls, but to love anyway, to hope anyway, to walk barefoot through the fragile hours of a vanishing day with your soul exposed and your arms outstretched. This is the mark of one who has awakened. You begin to see that no moment is a repetition. The sky has never looked quite like this. The wind has never whispered this exact phrase through the trees. The face of your beloved, aged by time and touched by sorrow, is more holy now than it ever was. Nothing repeats. Nothing returns. And so you stop waiting. You stop postponing your tenderness. You give now. You weep now. You speak your truth now. Because tomorrow has become a myth, and now is the only altar where anything sacred can be offered. And the offering is you. Not the version of you that pleases, performs, or persuades, but the raw flame that flickers beneath your ribcage, the quiet knowing, the gentle strength, the vulnerable truth. This is your gift to the world, not what you produce, but what you are when all production ceases. You are not here to dazzle with accomplishments. You are here to remind others of their light. By the way you refuse to dim yours, you will not always be understood. That is the cost of living from the soul. But what is misunderstood by minds is often recognized by hearts. You are not here to explain your essence. You are here to embody it. And in doing so, you become the lighthouse that needs no horn to call ships home. Your stillness alone is enough. When death becomes real, not as a fear, but as a presence, you become incapable of squandering yourself. You say no when your spirit shrinks. You say yes when your joy calls. You bow out of arguments that steal your peace and bow into silence that restores it. You no longer count your days by tasks completed, but by truth lived. The sun will rise without your permission and set without your resistance. Your task is not to control the arc of light, it is to receive it, to let it wash over your face, to let it illuminate your shadows, to let it remind you that you too are made of radiance, that you too were never meant to hide. And so you begin to walk as if the earth were sacred again, because it is. You touch things with reverence. You look people in the eyes, not as distractions, but as fellow sparks of the infinite. You speak less, but with more weight. You choose your presence over your performance. You move not to get somewhere, but to feel where you are. Even your pain softens, not because it disappears, but because it is no longer exiled. You sit with it. You welcome it as part of this great tapestry of what it means to be alive. And strangely, it begins to heal, not by force, but by love, by inclusion, by the sacred light of your unflinching attention. You are no longer at war with yourself. This is what it means to live each day as if it were your last, not recklessly, but reverently. Not with haste, but with holiness. You do not try to escape life. You press your ear against it and listen for the heartbeat of God. There comes a moment when living with the truth of impermanence no longer feels like a burden, but becomes a doorway not to despair, but to devotion. For when you truly know that nothing lasts forever, you stop wasting your sacred energy on the trivial. You stop clinging to the roles that dim your light, the opinions that drown your voice, the attachments that whisper promises of security but chain you to illusion. You begin to live, not to protect your life, but to offer it. And what a stunning offering your life becomes. Every word you speak begins to carry weight, because you understand it might be the last your lips will ever form. So you choose kindness, not because it's easy, but because cruelty feels foreign to your essence. You offer forgiveness, not because the wound was small, but because you refuse to let it define your final breath. You speak the truth you've buried beneath years of politeness and pretending not for applause, but for alignment. Because living in dishonesty, even if socially rewarded, is too great a price to pay when every day might be your last canvas. You notice in your living a soft rebellion taking shape, not loud, not forceful, but undeniable. You are no longer interested in being impressive. You are interested in being real. You are no longer seduced by speed. You are pulled by presence. You are no longer trying to win a race you never agreed to run. Instead, you walk slowly, barefoot, listening to the earth and your spirit in equal measure. And in that slowness, you find the divine. The eyes of strangers become sacred scripture. The sound of your own breath becomes a hymn. You do not need to go somewhere holy to feel the sacred, because you now realize you carry the temple within you. Every moment is a sanctuary when you show up with reverence. Every conversation becomes communion when you speak from your soul instead of your script. Even the mundane begins to shimmer. The act of tying your shoes becomes a blessing. Washing dishes becomes a meditation. You stop waiting for peak experiences and realize that life is not about the peaks, it is about the presence. The presence you bring to the ordinary, the love you weave into the spaces no one else sees. That is the true miracle. That is where the divine most often hides. And what of your fears? They still come, but they come as visitors now, not masters. They knock, but you no longer build your life around their arrival. You greet them, you learn from them, you let them pass. Because fear too is part of the human palette, but it is not the color with which you will paint your final day. Instead, you reach for the deeper hues: courage, compassion, clarity. You no longer ask life to be easy, you ask to be true within it. You no longer pray for certainty, you pray for peace with the unknown. You no longer demand perfection from yourself or others, you simply invite what is real, what is raw, what is reverent. And then without fanfare, you begin to glow. Not with effort, but with essence. Not because you've reached some spiritual summit, but because you've finally stopped resisting your own light. You realize that you were never broken. You were only buried. Beneath layers of fear, layers of programming, layers of trying to be everything but what you are. And now, in living as though each breath might be your last, you become honest, naked, sacred, alive. This aliveness is not adrenaline. It is not excitement. It is something quieter, more enduring. It is a presence so deep it silences the noise of comparison and ambition. It is a love so complete it no longer needs to be earned or chased. It is you in your wholeness, in your holiness, finally meeting life not from the edges of your existence, but from the center. And from that center, you radiate. There is a stillness that only arrives when you've made peace with endings not as tragedies, but as sacred closures, as portals through which your soul passes on its way to remembering what it came here to know. You begin to see that everything that ends does so not to punish, but to reveal. Each departure, each letting go, each final breath, these are not accidents of a cruel universe, but precise invitations from a loving source whispering, now, wake up. Ah, and you do. You awaken not in a dramatic instant, but in the slow rising of your own awareness, like a tide that climbs higher with each moment of presence. You start to feel how life has been speaking to you all along in the aches of your longing, in the laughter that came from nowhere, in the heartbreaks that stripped away your pretense, and in the quiet joy that asked for no audience. It was all the divine waiting patiently for you to notice that you were never alone, that you were never unloved, that nothing, absolutely nothing, has ever been wasted. And so when you live this day as if it were your last, you no longer curse the wounds, you bless them, because they softened you, because they opened your heart, because they took you beneath the surface where the eternal speaks. You begin to understand that your life is not a straight line to success or safety. It is a spiral, a sacred unraveling, a return. And every loss that you thought would destroy you only peeled away what could never stay. Every failure that seemed like the end was only an invitation to go deeper. Every delay that left you frustrated was grace in disguise, placing you exactly where love could find you. And now you are here, fully here. You no longer reach forward or grasp backward. You no longer delay your joy for a future version of yourself. You stop bargaining with time. You stop negotiating with your soul. You realize that you do not need to be more enlightened, more accomplished, more anything. You only need to be more present, more honest, more alive to this one sacred breath. This is where the soul lives in the unrepeatable now. You walk through this day as if it were borrowed, as if it were a gift wrapped in wind and light and color, not because it's fleeting, but because it's enough, more than enough. And in that awareness, you begin to notice how your energy changes. You no longer rush, not because there isn't much to do, but because nothing is worth your peace. You no longer argue for your limitations, because you finally see how limitless you are beneath the stories. You no longer seek to control others, because you are too devoted to mastering your own presence. And in that presence, your life begins to bloom, not outwardly, but inwardly. The seeds that were planted long ago by grace, buried beneath fear and waiting for your surrender, begin to open, quietly, miraculously, without demand, without deadlines. You become the flowering of a truth that was never not there. It only needed your stillness to emerge. Even your voice changes. It lowers in volume, but deepens in power. You speak less from opinion and more from knowing. You stop needing to be understood because your truth is no longer up for debate. You realize the only thing worth offering is your presence, unfiltered and unafraid. And this presence, this grounded, sacred, unhurried presence, becomes your medicine, not just for you, but for others. You begin to heal rooms just by walking into them, not because you carry answers, but because you carry alignment. Your very being whispers to others. It is safe to be real. It is safe to feel. It is safe to come home. And that, beloved, is what you are doing. You are coming home. To the part of you that never left, the part untouched by failure or praise, the part beneath the name, beneath the roles, beneath the flesh, the eternal spark clothed in temporary form. So when you live each day as if it were your last, you do not grieve it is too full of grace for that. You do not rush it is too rich for that. You do not fear, you bow. You bow to the mystery. You bow to the beauty. You bow to the ordinary divinity in every passing moment. And in that bowing you rise. There is a soft light that greets you when you have nothing left to chase. It does not arrive with thunder. It does not cry out your name. It simply glows like the hush of morning before the sun breaks open the sky. It is the light of surrender of the soul, no longer trying to be anything more than what it already is. And in that light, you see clearly for the first time there was never anything missing. You begin to live not in defiance of death, but in harmony with life. You stop measuring your days in tasks completed or accolades received, and start measuring them in how gently you held yourself, how courageously you showed up, how fully you loved without guarantee. And in this final recognition, you weep not out of sorrow, but out of reverence, because you see how sacred it all was. The laughter that spilled from your belly, the quiet walks no one noticed, the nights you held your own trembling body and whispered, "Still I rise," the mistakes that shattered you into more honest pieces, the failures that pried open parts of your heart that success never could. It was all sacred. There are no ordinary days, only eyes that have forgotten how to see. And now your vision has returned. You do not ask life for more time. You ask for more depth, more presence, more holy pauses. You do not beg for security. You trust the breath you've been given and the intelligence that gave it. You do not wish for someone else's journey. You walk yours with quiet pride, knowing that even your detours were divinely appointed. And if today truly were your last, you would not panic. You would rise slowly. You would touch the earth with gratitude. You would call those you love and say not, I need, but thank you. You would breathe in the scent of rain or the sound of a child's laughter, as if the entire cosmos had orchestrated it just for you. And perhaps you would sit in silence, no need to fill it, no need to run from it. Just sit. And in that sitting, feel your own soul rise to meet you with arms wide open. No judgment, no urgency, just presence. You would realize that nothing more needed to be done. That your being, your presence, your honest existence was enough. Always was. Always will be. The miracle was never in what you achieved. It was in what you allowed yourself to become. Open, soft, real, awake. And as the day draws its final breath, you would smile, not because everything was easy, but because everything was seen. Everything was lived. Nothing was wasted. You did not sleepwalk through your time here. You did not hide your light beneath the noise. You did not postpone your truth to please a world that never knew your name. You showed up. You felt deeply. You loved anyway. And now, as the sun sets not just on the day, but on the illusion that anything was ever separate from God, you would feel it. Peace, not as a concept, but as a resting place. And so, beloved soul, live today not as a countdown, but as a coronation. Not as a finish line, but as a homecoming. Let your every breath be a benediction. Let your every step be a devotion. Let your life, this one fleeting, eternal, magnificent life, be lived not in fear of the last day, but in honor of every single one. Because in the end, it was never about how long you lived, but how deeply you remembered that each day was a miracle, and you were always the light. There is a sacredness to your breath, not merely as a function of the body, but as the whisper of the infinite moving through form. Each inhale is a soft echo of the divine saying, you are alive. Each exhale, a quiet surrender, a letting go into the boundless now. And in this rhythm, in this invisible, ever-present dance between taking in and releasing, lives your doorway to truth. You may have been taught that prayer is something spoken, recited, directed upward to some distant power. But I invite you now to remember something older, something truer. That prayer is not a thing you do. It is what you are when you become fully present. When you align with the breath, not just as air, but as awareness, you enter the temple of this moment. And in that temple, everything becomes holy. Let every breath be a prayer, not out of ritual, not from duty, but from remembrance, because you are not separate from Source. You are an extension of it. The breath does not belong to you. It moves through you. You do not command life. You are animated by it. And the moment you stop trying to master this experience and instead merge with it, the fear begins to dissolve. The striving quiets. The ego's demands grow still. And what remains is something eternal. Something soft and wide as the sky. The self beneath the self. The presence that watches without judgment, loves without condition, and breathes without asking. You have searched the world for peace only to discover that peace cannot be found, it can only be remembered. And it is remembered not in the achieving, not in the running, but in the stillness, the space between thoughts, the hush between heartbeats. That is where God lives, not in the thunder, but in the silence after. Not in the lightning strike, but in the calm that follows. There is a wellspring of wisdom within you that no book, no teacher, no guru can replace, because your soul is not behind. It is not waiting. It is not broken. It is simply buried beneath the noise. The noise of proving, the noise of becoming, the noise of seeking a home that was never outside of you. Let every breath be a prayer of remembering, a prayer of returning. You were never meant to carry the weight of a world. You were only meant to walk through. You were never asked to become anything. You were invited to unbecome everything that is not truth, not love, not light. And as you release those layers, not with effort, but with grace, what reveals itself is not a better version of you, but the real you. The you that was here before the name, before the pain, before the striving, the you that has always been enough, the ego will argue. It will panic in the silence. It will say, you must do more, be more, prove more. But the soul does not scream. It whispers, and it says only this: you are whole. Be still. Breathe. When you breathe with intention, the mind softens, the body realigns, the heart remembers its rhythm. And in that remembrance, you return to your natural state, not of tension, but of trust. Not of grasping, but of flowing. Not of fear, but of surrender. You are not the roles you've played. You are not the wounds you've survived. You are not the labels the world has stamped upon your back. You are the space in which it all arises, the awareness that watches, the love that remains. Let every breath be a prayer of forgiveness, not toward others, but toward yourself. For all the years you spent believing you were not enough, for all the ways you judged your own reflection, for every moment you thought you had to earn your right to be here. Forgive it, bless it, let it go like smoke on the wind. Because the truth is, you are not here to strive, you are here to shine. Not with the fire of ambition, but with the glow of alignment. And that glow does not come from what you do, it comes from who you are when you finally stop pretending. When you drop the mask and stand naked in your own presence, what you find is not shame but radiance, not fear but freedom. And that freedom does not come in the absence of struggle, it comes in the presence of truth. And truth, real truth, is always simple. You are already divine. Breathe that in. You are not separate. You never have been. The stars that burn in distant galaxies share their matter with your bones. The same intelligence that spins planets spins the cells of your skin. You are the cosmos in motion. You are the formless made form. Let every breath be a prayer of surrender, not of giving up, but of giving over the illusion of control, giving over the belief that you must know how it will all unfold. You do not need to know. You need only to trust the one who breathes you. This trust is not weakness. It is the highest strength. It is the strength that says, even when I do not see the path, I walk it. Even when I do not understand the plan, I open my heart. Even when I am afraid, I breathe. To live in trust is to live in the now. And the now is the only place healing occurs. The past is gone. The future is imaginary. But this breath, this one is real, and it is sacred. Let it anchor you to the only place where God can meet you. Here, not tomorrow, not later. Now, let every breath be a prayer of gratitude. Not because everything is perfect, but because everything is present. Because in this moment you are alive, your heart is beating, your lungs are receiving the gift of life. And even if the world outside is storming, the stillness within remains untouched. Gratitude is not a reaction, it is a recognition, a holy acknowledgement that every breath is a miracle, that this moment is enough, that you, just as you are worthy of love, of peace, of rest. You are not broken. You are breaking open. You are not lost. You are being rerouted. You are not behind. You are being prepared. Everything is unfolding in divine time, and your only task is to stay awake, not awake in mind alone, but awake in soul. Awake to the beauty, awake to the blessings. Awake to the breath that carries God in and out of your body like waves upon the shore. Let every breath be a prayer of coming home. Let your breath lead you deeper now, not into thought, but into being. For beneath the thinking, beneath the planning and the remembering, there is a place untouched by time, a sanctuary not built by hands, but by presence. And in that sanctuary you discover not an answer, but a knowing that does not shout or declare, but hums quietly, like the earth beneath your feet, reminding you of your origin. You were not sent here to figure it all out. You were sent here to feel, to taste, to weep, to wonder, to marvel at the fact that out of all possibilities, life chose to breathe through you. Not as a random flicker in the dark, but as a purposeful flame, glowing with intention. The soul does not ask you to be perfect, it only asks that you be available, open, willing to feel what is here without fleeing from it, willing to be seen without shrinking. Let this willingness become your new way of walking. Let it soften your pace. Let it open your eyes to the holiness hidden in the mundane, the way light filters through a cracked door, the way your own heartbeat keeps time with the wind. These are not accidents, these are invitations. And the more you accept them, the more the ordinary begins to shimmer with the extraordinary. You have been conditioned to seek peace as a destination. But peace is not waiting on the other side of achievement. Peace is not the prize for fixing all your flaws. Peace is the path. It is the place within you that never needed anything to begin with. When you rest in that place, you do not become passive, you become powerful in the quietest, most transformative way. You begin to radiate instead of reach. You begin to listen instead of defend. And in that listening, life speaks. It does not speak in language. It speaks in alignment, in ease, in the soft sense of yes that rises from within without needing to be justified. It speaks through synchronicities, through gut instincts, through the sense that even if nothing makes sense, everything feels right. This is the compass of the soul, not rigid, not predictable, but always true. Let your life become less about managing outcomes and more about following the sacred inner compass. Let your next step emerge not from fear, but from love, not from habit, but from presence. And presence is never in a rush. Presence is not checking clocks or comparing calendars. It simply is. And in its stillness, it moves mountains, not by force, but by grace. Let go now of the idea that there is somewhere else to be, that there is someone else you should be, that there is a standard to meet before you can rest. That illusion has robbed you long enough. The truth is simpler, kinder. The truth is you are the miracle already unfolding, not tomorrow, not when you improve, but now, in this breath. And as you breathe, know this, you are not missing anything. You are not lacking anything. What you seek is not absent, it is waiting, patiently, lovingly, for you to pause, to be still long enough to receive. For all the wisdom in the world cannot enter a clenched heart. But the moment you soften, the moment you say yes to what is, the moment you stop racing against life, it rushes in, not to fix you, but to reveal you. Let every breath be a prayer not of asking, but of allowing the mystery, allowing the not knowing, allowing the fullness of your experience without editing it to make it acceptable, because your truth does not need approval to be holy. Your tears do not need a reason to be sacred. Your joy does not need a purpose to be valid. You are not here to be understood by the world. You are here to understand yourself so fully that you no longer need the world's validation to feel real. And this understanding, this sacred intimacy with your own essence begins with stillness. It begins with the breath. It begins with the quiet decision to stop running not from others, but from yourself. So be here now. Inhabit this moment as if it were your only home, because it is. The past is a dream you've already woken from. The future is a fog not yet born. But this breath, this beating heart, this feeling is alive. And in its aliveness, everything you've been chasing is already present. There is a still river flowing beneath the noise of your thoughts. And this river knows exactly where it is going. It does not need a map. It does not resist the rocks. It does not fear the bends. It simply flows, effortless, timeless, trusting. And so must you. For when you learn to surrender like the river, when you stop gripping the banks of certainty, life begins to carry you not away, but home. You have been taught that safety is found in control. But control is the tension of the ego. It is the illusion that you must hold everything together or it will all fall apart. Yet have you noticed? The trees do not control the wind, and still they dance. The stars do not control the sky, and still they shine. And the heart does not control its own rhythm, and still it beats. What if the safety you long for isn't found in tightening your grip, but in loosening it? To trust life is to trust that you are not separate from its intelligence, that what you feel as intuition is not just instinct, it is the divine speaking your native tongue. The whisper of God is not a thunderclap. It is the knowing that comes when your mind quiets and your soul begins to speak. And it is always speaking. The question is not whether God is guiding you. The question is, are you listening? Let every breath be a prayer that says, I am listening, not with your ears, but with your being, listening to the spaces between events, listening to the nudges, the aches, the longings, for they are not obstacles, they are oracles. They are not symptoms to be silenced, they are signals to be honored. Even your pain has a purpose, especially your pain, for pain is the chisel of the soul. It carves away the illusions that you thought were essential. It strips away the masks you thought were your face. It breaks the shell, not to punish, but to release. And what it releases is not more pain, it is more light. You do not need to run from what hurts. You need only to meet it with presence, with reverence, with the quiet courage to feel what is there without the armor of analysis. Because feeling is not weakness, it is alchemy. And when you feel fully, without defense, something ancient begins to dissolve. The wound becomes a window, the ache becomes a door. And what walks through is your truth, unguarded and whole. This is not a path of becoming more. It is the sacred undoing, the holy unraveling of everything that is not you, and it is gentle, and it is relentless, and it is love. Let your breath soften your resistance. Let it enter the corners of your body where fear has settled. Let it touch the parts of you that you've kept hidden even from yourself. There is no judgment in breath, only invitation to return, to feel, to remember. There is a presence in you that has never been afraid. It has watched every heartbreak, every triumph, every choice, every regret, and loved you through them all. This presence is not improved by your victories, nor diminished by your failures. It is the eternal yes behind every no the world has ever given you. And it waits. It waits not to punish, not to lecture, but to welcome you back, the way the shore welcomes the wave, the way the sun waits each morning without fail, asking for nothing in return but your openness to see. Let every breath be a prayer of return, not to an idea, not to a belief, but to yourself, to the living, breathing truth beneath the armor, to the being you were before the world taught you to perform. That being is not buried deep, it is just beneath the next exhale. It is what remains when the thoughts subside and the present stays. You do not need to strive to reach it, you need only to stop reaching. The moment you stop trying to earn what is already yours, grace begins to flow. Not because you summoned it, but because it was always there, waiting for your permission to be received. And when you receive it, when you truly let it in, not with your mind, but with your body, your breath, your surrender, the entire fabric of your reality begins to shift, not externally, but existentially. You stop asking, what is my purpose? And start living as if your existence is already the answer. You stop wondering if you are enough and start living as if you never weren't. This is not arrogance, this is remembrance. And remembrance is the most sacred act of all. You are not a small flame in a vast darkness. You are the light itself. You are not here to escape life or rise above it. You are here to merge with it, to bring heaven to earth, not through doctrine, but through presence. And when you are present, fully, nakedly, unapologetically present, you become the prayer. You become the healing. You become the answer to the very question you thought you had to ask. So we begin again, not as a return to the same, but as an arrival at a more spacious self. You are not the same as you were a moment ago. The breath that met you then has dissolved, and this new breath carries its own frequency, its own message, its own medicine. Let it enter, not as oxygen, but as light. Let it move through the tight spaces where hope once hid. Let it wash the dust from the corners of your heart. This is how we heal, not by effort, but by softening. We live in a world addicted to noise. Every silence is mistaken for emptiness, every pause seen as lack. But there's a silence within you that holds more wisdom than 1,000 spoken truths. It is not the silence of nothing, it is the silence of everything. The unspoken knowing, the space where you no longer strive to be seen because you are finally witnessing yourself. In that space, you are not waiting to be chosen, you are remembering you were never unchosen. There is no need to become louder to matter more. Your power is not found in the volume of your voice, but in the depth of your presence. The most transformative energies move without sound. Watch how a sunrise alters the entire sky without speaking a word. You too can shift everything not by what you say, but by what you are when no one is asking anything of you. Be the presence that calms without trying, the presence that blesses simply by existing. You are not created to be decoded or simplified. You are not a riddle waiting to be solved. You are a living paradox, soft and strong, tender and eternal, breaking open and yet unbreakable. And your wholeness does not require anyone's understanding to exist. The tree does not justify its bending. The river does not explain its curve. They simply honor the truth of their own flow, and so should you. Let go of the need to narrate your becoming. Let the transformation happen in the unseen, where roots deepen and light finds its way into forgotten places. Let it be holy not because it is witnessed, but because it is real. The most sacred shifts are often invisible to the eye, but undeniable to the soul. Trust that. You are not here to convince. You are here to embody. You are here to become such a pure expression of inner alignment that your presence speaks louder than any attempt at articulation. And when that happens, you do not shine for applause, you shine because it is your nature to shine. So be where you are, not to analyze it, not to escape it, but to inhabit it, fully, gently, honestly. There is something sacred about a life lived from the inside out. It does not bend to the pace of the world. It does not measure itself against timelines. It trusts its own timing. It honors its own rhythm. This is the rhythm of your breath, the drumbeat of now. Let it guide you into this sacred remembering. You do not need to arrive anywhere else to be whole. You do not need to be seen differently to be sacred. You only need to breathe where you are, and let that breath be enough. You have walked through lifetimes in a single lifetime. You have carried burdens that were never yours to begin with, words that cut and stayed long after they were spoken, silences that echoed louder than shouts, expectations that wrapped around your spirit like chains, asking you to become something other than your truth. And still, you stood. You kept walking. You kept breathing, not because it was easy, not because you always believed you could, but because something within you, something holy, refused to extinguish the flame. There is grief within you, even if you've never given it a name. Grief not only for what was lost, but for what was never given. The love you didn't receive, the apologies that never came, the parts of yourself you abandoned just to belong. And it is okay to mourn those things. It is not weakness to feel the weight of them. It is sacred. It is honest. It is healing. The soul is not asking you to pretend those wounds do not exist. It is asking you to stop identifying with them, to see them not as who you are, but as what you've passed through. They are not the core of your being. They are the dust on the mirror. And even if that mirror has been fogged by years of pain, the reflection beneath it remains untouched. Let yourself weep if you must, not from despair, but from release. There is no nobility in holding it all in. There is no strength in silence that crushes your spirit. Cry, if that is what brings you back to truth. Let the tears soften the soil around your heart so that new life may rise. Forgiveness, too, is part of this path, not always for them, but for you, for the part of you that thought you had to keep proving, for the part of you that thought you weren't allowed to rest until the past made sense. Let that version of you sit down now. Let them exhale. Let them feel what it's like to not carry the story anymore. You are not the pain that happened to you. You are the awareness that held space for it. You are the space between the bruises, the witness, the seer. The one who endured, yes, but also the one who is now free to release the identity of the one who endured. You do not have to live as a monument to what went wrong. You do not have to keep rehearsing the story of your suffering as if it is the only truth you have. Your story is not your prison, it can be your passageway, but only if you are willing to loosen your grip on it. Only if you allow it to be rewritten by love. Let every breath be a prayer of liberation. A release of the past, not from erasure, but from reverence. Thank the pain for what it taught you, and then walk on. Thank the heartbreak for opening what nothing else could reach. Thank the closed doors for leading you inward. Every loss, every delay, every unanswered longing was a sacred detour, a redirection, not a rejection. You are not here to live in the shadows of old seasons. You are here to rise unshackled. And that rising does not need to be dramatic. It does not need to be loud. It can begin with something as simple, as profound, as one conscious breath. A breath that says, I choose presence over punishment. I choose truth over performance. I choose love over memory. And love, real love, starts within, not as a concept, but as a daily return, a return to the self that was never broken. a return to the still point within you that has never been touched by trauma, that has only ever known how to love, how to shine, how to simply be. Yes, now we reach the final bend in this river of remembering, where the current slows and what once felt separate comes back together. There is no grand conclusion here, no ending marked by trumpets or fanfare. Only a sacred arrival, a quiet exhale into what has always been waiting. You are not stepping into something new. You are stepping into what is real. The journey was never about acquiring more. It was about shedding what was never yours. Not about becoming someone else, but unbecoming everything you were told you had to be. And now, with the weight of the past gently released, with the breath as your companion, with silence as your sanctuary, you begin to feel what freedom truly is, not an escape, but a homecoming. Freedom is not the absence of responsibility or emotion. It is the ability to feel everything and still remain grounded in truth. It is the willingness to stand inside the storm without becoming it, to cry without drowning, to love without clinging, to live without needing a script. And this is where your soul stretches wide, no longer curled in defense, but unfurled in trust. Not because you know what comes next, but because you no longer need to know. The river does not need to see the ocean to keep flowing. The flower does not ask the sky for proof before blooming. And you, beloved soul, do not need permission to shine. The light you carry was lit by something eternal, and it cannot be extinguished by the shifting winds of this world. Let every breath be a prayer, not just now, but always. Let it be the way you touch the sacred. Let it be the rhythm that returns you when the mind runs wild. Let it be the anchor when fear knocks at the door. Let it be the reminder that presence is your power and peace is your inheritance. You are not behind. You are not too late. You are not incomplete. Every step you've taken, even the ones that felt like detours, have led you to this moment. And this moment is not ordinary, it is holy. It is the point where your soul chose to return, where you dropped the armor, where you unclenched your spirit, where you finally said yes to life, to love, to yourself. You are not your name, not your pain, not your past. You are the infinite wearing form for a little while. You are the breath of the divine, made visible. You are the silent witness behind the noise, the unchanging sky behind every weather, and nothing, no mistake, no failure, no forgetting can alter that. So stand now in your truth, not with defiance, but with devotion, not to prove anything, but to offer everything. Let your presence be your prayer. Let your smile be your offering. Let your being be your message. And when the world tries to rush you, return to your breath. When doubt knocks, breathe deeper. When grief stirs, breathe softer. When joy rises, breathe fuller. Let the breath carry it all. Let it sanctify every moment. Let it remind you again and again, you are not becoming the light. You are the light. And in your light, may others remember their own. In your stillness, may others find rest. In your truth, may the world begin to heal. For you are not here to fix anything. You are here to be a living invitation, to walk as presence, to love as awareness, to breathe as prayer. And so it is.